The Selling Shop, a sales training center. My name's Dan Bow, and I put on formal training on sales for high-educated entrepreneurs that have to sell their own services. But it's not so much how to sell. It's more about how people go about making decisions. I have a class specific for attorneys because potential clients often will talk to multiple attorneys before making a decision. If a huge case ends up in an attorney's office and that attorney doesn't use the right questions, that client could end up with the wrong representation. The sales technique attorney-specific class gives attorneys the tools they need to effectively ask the questions that pivot the client to a commitment in an amiable way, in an honorable way, so the potential client doesn't miss out on the best representation, and so that attorney doesn't miss out on that huge case. Let's get started. This is the information age. All people are inundated with information. It is way too much information to take in, process, and then use to make decisions. So people have come up with shortcuts to the decision-making process in order to adapt to this information age. People are using these shortcuts all day long to make decisions. They're using these shortcuts to determine what to wear. They're using these shortcuts to determine how to navigate their car, when to turn, where to turn, down busy streets. They're using these shortcuts at home, at work, on the elevator, in parking garages, and in attorneys' offices. These shortcuts are not logical. So when that huge case client is in front of you making a decision to commit, leave a retainer, or to keep talking to different attorneys, that person isn't going to stop using all these shortcuts that person's been using all day long, analyze your logical information, then make a rational decision based on your information. That person is going to continue to use these decision-making shortcuts to form very quick judgments. If an attorney doesn't know what these shortcuts are, that attorney may say something that influences the person not to go forward rather than to go forward. Because, like I've said before, these shortcuts are not logical. They simply help us survive in this information overload world. Higher education entrepreneurs must know what these shortcuts are in order to facilitate a sales process that is amiable and congruent with how potential clients form quick judgments. What you say will be plugged into these shortcuts when you're talking to those potential clients. And what you say will be used by those potential clients to move forward with you at that moment or not. I want to share with you one principle that influences our decisions every second of the day. This is very, very powerful. So take out a pen and paper. You're going to want to take some notes on this. Everybody will do whatever everybody else is doing. This is way more powerful than people wanting to think that they are unique. Let's look at some examples. Next time that you are in church or listening to a band play, be that very first person that gets up to do a standing ovation. Now, it's going to be difficult to do if everybody else is sitting down. But I think that you probably will be able to do that. But this next challenge, you won't be able to do. Next time that everybody else gets up to do a standing ovation, try to be that only person that is sitting down. You'll be sitting there thinking, I'm going to prove Dan wrong. I'm going to prove Dan wrong. I'm trying to sit down. And then you'll find yourself, if everybody else doing a standing ovation, you'll find yourself on your feet doing a standing ovation without even thinking about it. Now, when you did stand up to do that standing ovation, did you do it because the band was that good? No, you did it because it's innate to us to do what everybody else is doing. There has been tragedy after tragedy after tragedy because of this principle. Everybody does what everybody else is doing. There was a lady who was stabbed to death in public while other people watched. The reason that nobody called the police, the reason that nobody interfered is not because They didn't want to get involved. There were people from their apartment complex that could have dialed 911 without ever getting involved. And it was not because they were bad people and just didn't care. When the police interviewed the 38 people who all saw this lady being stabbed to death and didn't do anything, the one commonality that they all shared is they all said, "We did not know that there was an emergency." And that is accurate, even though they saw her being hurt by this guy. What happens when they first see that is their attention level increases and they feel like getting involved, and then they look around, see everybody else doing nothing, walking by, trying to determine if they should get involved. The man that you see before you is crying out in public, "Help me, help me," as people are walking by doing nothing. It's not that they're too busy. It's not that they don't care. The reason that they're not helping him, even though he's asking for help, is because nobody is helping him. And it is innate to us to look around and do whatever everybody else is doing. If a group walked up to help this guy, all of a sudden everybody else would stop what they were doing and help him. So what does this mean to you? There may be things that you are saying that is influencing the potential clients not to go forward, and you don't even realize it. Let's look at an example. When I put on these formal sales courses in the classroom, I ask the students, how do you introduce your services to somebody who may be a potential client? And let's look at a real life example of what somebody told me that they say in order to engage a potential new client into the sales process. This person sells wills and trusts. They may say something like this: 74% of people don't have a will or a trust, and their kids could end up in foster care because of it. Now, logically, when they tell somebody that, that person's going to walk away, think logically, I really should have a will or a trust because I don't want anything bad to happen to my kids. But their gut is screaming, most people don't have a will, so I'm not going to get a will. Their gut is telling them not to get a will because a salesperson said most people don't have it. That person gave them permission not to have a will or trust by stating that most people don't have it. Please write down what I'm going to share with you next. Never say most people don't if it is something you want them to do. Nobody ever does this, but they would benefit if they did. Never say something like that. The moment you say that, it's not congruent. You're telling them something logically, but you're speaking to their gut to do something different. Use everybody or most people if it is something that you want them to do. Everybody always chooses the best tile because it lasts the longest. Most people choose this high-quality product because it has the longest warranty. Let's look at another aspect of this. If it's something you don't want them to do, use the word nobody or hardly anybody. Hardly anybody ever chooses that lower-end product because it often falls apart before 2 years. Remember this in regards to being authentic and honorable. Never lie. So let's look at the case of the person selling the wills and the trusts. We wouldn't want to say most people have a will so that their kids won't end up in foster care. We wouldn't want to say that because that's not the truth. But we can phrase it this way. Nobody wants something bad to happen to their kids. Everybody wants to have a will or a trust so that their kids don't end up in foster care. Now we're communicating with them on a logical level, and we're communicating with them on an innate emotional level on how they're going about making decisions all day long with these shortcuts that they're using to make decisions. Extensive research into how people make decisions has gone into the Selling Shop Sales Course for Highly Educated Entrepreneurs. Let's look at what some of those examples are. David Hardman, author of the college textbook, Judgment and Decision Making. Robert Cialdini, author of Influence, Science, and Practice. Jonah Lear, author of the book How We Decide. All of this extensive psychology of how people make decisions, combined with the fact that I personally interviewed over 100 top sales performers. Now, when I say top sales performers, what I mean is people that have this extremely high-level ability to effectively communicate. People making $100,000 per month on the phones or in person, moving people forward in a sales process. A lot of these high-level salespeople you've heard of through their nationwide advertising campaigns. And I was surprised as I was talking to them that a lot of the material taught in traditional sales classes, they don't even use. And I think what happens is somebody goes to a sales course and then thinks, well, this is good material. I think I will copy it and teach it in a sales course. And they're teaching what they learned in a sales course. And it's not real-world applicable. It's not authentic. Now, I've gone over a really important element on the decision-making process in a very short amount of time that I have on this video. I've discussed one mistake that I've made, that you've made, that everybody's made up until they know this information. And all the people that learn this information will never make that mistake again. And it is saying something like, most people don't choose that, but they would benefit if they did. Getting this decision thing down is essential. Use these techniques on behalf of your clients when you're settling cases, when you're negotiating settlements. Now, this isn't just about techniques on how people decide which attorney to use. This is techniques on how people make all decisions. Use these techniques on behalf of your clients when speaking to juries, how you phrase your sentences in order to be congruent with how juries make decisions. And know how huge case clients form quick judgments on who they're going to decide to work with. So what does the Selling Shop teach? Pivot point questions, creating intrigue by holding back information, getting the commitment before you've given them the information so that you don't become that free consultant. My name's Dan Bowe with The Selling Shop. To continue learning about sales and how people make decisions so that you don't take a risk on losing that potentially huge case, register for the one-evening sales technique attorney-specific class at thesellingshop.com.